Hey guys, how's going? I just wanted to share a video of my own personal experiences with setting up an enclosure for sort of my first time and thermostats and all that sort of jazz. So this enclosure here, as you can see, I built myself. It's 1.2 long by 600 deep, 600 high. So I built it out of melamine stuff just from Bunnings, and it's the biggest recommended enclosure you can go for an adult bearded dragon. Now, as far as setting up things like that, as far as the heat lights, it was a bit of trial and error for myself. So roughly, if you have a look at where I've got my heat bulb on the top, you can see the distance down to her basking area. So with basking areas, I highly recommend you use a dimming thermostat. Now, Ecotech do two style thermostats, right? There's a dual thermostat control. Then there is what they call one of these. Just bear with me, I'll show you it. Now, a dual dimming thermostat. So the difference between these and the on-off one is with the heat bulb, it will dim the light. As you can see, it's very dull to control the temperature rather than flick on and off. So with the on-off temperature controller, I'd recommend that more so for like heat mats or ceramic heated meters, things like that you're going to have with snakes where you'd use heat mats and things like that. Also, the on-off Ecotech doesn't give you a cool down night mode, so like a nighttime mode. So bear that in mind, in particular when you are purchasing these. So basically, yeah, I stuffed up. I went on-off thermostat. The bulb was flicking on and off to control the temperature, so it was like a disco show in there. Kind of upsets a beardy. Plus, at night time, the light had no way of shutting off completely unless you used a ceramic heated emitter all around the clock. But for nighttime, it has to cool down for your beardy. It should cool down for your beardy. Like, you need to simulate day and night, right? So I ended up getting this dimming thermostat. So what I ended up doing was, because I'm about 500 away, I had to use a just trial and error with the temperatures on the basking spot itself, because the ambient temperature, or the temperature inside the enclosure versus surface temperature, is pretty important for the bearded dragon. So I ended up working out that, I'm roughly 500. I ended up, and my probes up the back there, I ended up working out that if I have that corner temperature over there set to about 35 degrees, that basking spot here would maintain a surface temperature of around 42 to 38 degrees thereabouts, depending on the light. So which is ideal. And one thing I noticed was, as soon as I got this temperature set up, she started coming out from under the logs and stuff like that, stopped running around the enclosure, and she hasn't left this area. Like, she's loving it. She's hanging around here more than ever, which is awesome. So my best guess is beforehand, I either had it too hot or the temperatures weren't quite right. But as you can see there now, that's my cold side temperature, which is 28 degrees with 52% humidity. And I've got that down on the back corner there. So, and the food's on the cool side, as you can see. She's happy there. She's got a bit of asparagus there and stuff like that she likes to eat, and bok choy. So she's hanging around here. So the surface temperature of that is quite ideal. Now, if I go around the back here to where the thermostat controller is, I've got it set to, it's currently doing 33 degrees, but it will set to 35. So that's in the back corner, but just be mindful that a basking area temperature is different to the hot side. Now, there's so many sites that recommend, 45 degrees. Some say, no, it's too hot. Some say 30, 35, like it's in between. Like, all I can suggest is, I think a bearded dragon's core temperature needs to be 36 degrees thereabouts for its normal body temperature to be walking around, and active, I guess. So it's trial and error. You do what suits your bearded dragon. what works. There's nothing's perfect in this, is what I've learned to come by with setting up this sort of stuff. Personally, since I've put this in and had that temperature, I've seen her go there more than ever and bask, and she's eaten, which is good because, you know, beardies need heat, otherwise they won't eat. You know, that's the saying that all bearded dragons. But this was my personal experience. So with the dimming thermostat, right? So I've set it for 35 degrees with a variance of 2 degrees. So it'll sort of fluctuate between the 2 degrees. Well, it'll hopefully hang around the 2 degrees, but it's also alarmed at 2 degrees. The alarm's on silent, but I'm pretty well keeping an eye on her temperature most of the days anyway. The bulb seems to dim on and off, which is awesome. It doesn't turn on and off, it dims. The nighttime setting I've got at 10 degrees, so it shouldn't drop below the 10 degrees at night. Now, with that being said, with the 10 degrees at night, with where I am here in Queensland, it's currently summer. It doesn't really drop below 10 degrees here at night. Now, if it were and that was to become a problem, there is a setting on this thermostat where you can set the nighttime temperature, or there's a setting in there that you can make it the same as like a daytime so that the light just stays off at night. And then I just use my ceramic heated emitter here for a nighttime temperature if it were to drop below 10 degrees in this enclosure, particularly around winter. So this is my experience on it all. But just, yeah, if you're really wanting to know about these thermostatic controllers and you want nighttime control, I highly recommend you get the dual dimming digital thermostat, not the dual control digital thermostat, I think it's called. It's an on-off thermostat. There's a difference. On-off and dimming. You want dimming if you want to use a heat lamp, and it'll dull the bulb and it will extend the life of your bulb. That's where I made the biggest mistake. I highly recommend you get a thermostat. It's so worth it. Otherwise, because it's an absolute pain you got to try and, you know, like if your room temperature changes throughout the day, the tank temperature changes, it can get too hot or too cold for them. They can become stressed. I recommend getting a thermostat. Like, I think this thing cost me $160, $180. It's dearer than the on-off one, and there's a good reason because it's got more features. But I noticed the guy that does these videos on Facebook is really good. He explains well how to set both of them up. There is a lot of questions in there that people are asking that I notice he hasn't replied to about, hey, how do I get my light to turn off at night? You know, blah blah blah. You need to get this one if you're wanting to do that. But if you have a look real close here, it says dimming plus timer plus nighttime drop. All right, so it does all three, even though there's 2 ports. So So anyway, guys, that's the information I've got as far as explaining all this and the temperatures and whatnot. But yeah, she's been a very happy little camper since I've put this in, and it's the most I've seen her use her basking area. So my best guess is before maybe I had it too hot and I may have been roasting her a little bit. UVB also works on the timer. So rule of thumb of it's 2/3 of the tank, which it is, and I use a 12% at that distance. So 12% is perfect at that distance inside that enclosure. I wouldn't go any higher than 12%, unless of course you're running a different enclosure and you've got to put it on top of the cage. Otherwise the UV index will be too extreme, and it will cook. It'll cook your dragon. So look, I'm no expert. This is trial and error. I have been asking Cookies Critters a lot of questions. I can't thank him enough. So you might want to recommend him if you're looking to do a setup. I think he's based in Sydney, New South Wales in Australia. He's got a lot of, and he replies to every question I've asked him. He's great. But yeah, so she's a happy little camper. I've got the light settings 12 hours for adults. I think it's like 14 hours thereabouts for babies. But she's 2 years old now, and she's really cool. But yeah, that's just my personal experience. So yeah, the hot side's sitting there at a nice 28 degrees and 52%, which is pretty good. And that's in that back corner, which is what you want on the cold side. She's got a retreat in her little hammock, which she tends to go to. But not only that, putting the food and the water over there, it doesn't tend to evaporate or go off, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, go all crusty and, you know, turn to shit sort of thing. So, look, I'm happy to take any questions if you guys have got any. But if I don't know, honestly, I will be upfront. I'm happy to share my experiences with people, but it's trial and error with this, guys. When you're new to this, you know what I mean. Like, I'm no expert by all means. This is my first beardy, and yeah, I love it a bit. But yeah, this dimming control thermostat is like the best thing I've ever gotten. Yeah, they're pricey, but man, they're worth it. So anyway, guys, cheers, eh?